Have you ever noticed how some women, after spending years, sometimes decades, with their husbands, begin to carry an invisible weight, a quiet frustration that builds over time, growing louder with each passing year? What started as a relationship filled with warmth, laughter, and shared dreams can slowly evolve into one marked by daily annoyances, emotional distance, or even silent resentment. This isn't just a rare occurrence, it's something many long-term couples face. Somewhere along the journey, the spark dims, the connection fades, and instead of feeling cherished, many women begin to feel emotionally drained and disconnected from the very man they once promised forever to. But what causes this transformation? Why do so many women end up feeling more like caretakers or housemates than partners? In this video, we're peeling back the layers to explore the real reasons behind this emotional shift. It's not about surface-level complaints or petty arguments. We're diving deeper into the emotional, psychological, and often unnoticed patterns that quietly shape a marriage over time. These changes usually don't happen overnight. In fact, they creep in so slowly that most couples don't even realize it until one day the warmth is gone and what's left is a cold, lingering feeling of regret or resentment. But here's the empowering part. Once you understand what's really happening beneath the surface, you gain the ability to change it, whether it's in your own marriage or in the life of someone you care about. Recognizing the signs early can be the first step toward healing, reconnecting, and rebuilding something meaningful. So stay with me until the end, because some of the reasons behind this growing emotional gap might genuinely surprise you. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy heartfelt, eye-opening content like this, consider subscribing and tapping the notification bell so you never miss a future video. And if this topic resonates with you as we go along, drop a 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0 and let me know. Your feedback really helps shape content that supports and uplifts this community. All right, let's get into it. Reason number 1, decades of emotional labor without recognition. One of the most powerful and painful reasons many women grow resentful in their later years is something called emotional labor. It's not just about doing the laundry or cooking dinner. It's the unseen, often thankless work of managing everyone's emotions, keeping life running smoothly, and making sure the family remains connected, cared for, and supported. For countless women, this emotional burden spans decades. It's remembering anniversaries, planning holidays, keeping the family calendar intact, being the peacekeeper during family tension, and constantly anticipating the needs of others, often at the expense of their own. What's even more draining is that this work often goes unnoticed, even by the man they love most. Many husbands believe that being a good provider, earning a living and putting food on the table, is their primary role. And while financial support is important, emotional presence is just as essential. A relationship isn't sustained by money alone. It thrives on appreciation, empathy, and the daily choice to see and value each other. Now imagine this. A woman who's spent 30 or 40 years juggling work, raising children, managing the home, and nurturing her relationship, all while receiving little to no recognition for her efforts. Over time, that lack of acknowledgement doesn't just hurt, it creates deep emotional fatigue. Let's take Carol as an example. She's a 72-year-old retired school teacher who gave her entire adult life to her family. She raised 3 children, worked full-time, and ensured every holiday, birthday, and family event was meaningful. She kept track of appointments, organized get-togethers, maintained family friendships, and made life feel seamless for everyone else. But when Carol reflects on those years, a sad realization hits her. No one did the same for her. Her husband never once asked if she needed support. He never thanked her for all the little things she did to keep their life together running so smoothly. And now, in the quiet of retirement, she feels emotionally depleted, not because she stopped loving, but because she spent a lifetime giving without being seen. This is the painful truth about emotional labor. It's invisible. And because it's invisible, it's easy to overlook. A woman might be holding up the emotional scaffolding of an entire household, and yet if her partner never acknowledges that effort, he won't understand why she's pulling away. And it's not just about recognition in the early years. As time goes on, what once felt like sweet gestures, like a compliment or a quick thank you, may no longer be enough. If a husband begins to assume his wife will always handle everything without stepping up to share the load, she may start to feel more like a live-in manager than a loved and equal partner. This is where resentment begins. It doesn't explode overnight. It builds quietly, one overlooked birthday, one unspoken thank you, one more day of feeling invisible. Eventually, love can turn into frustration, and emotional closeness becomes emotional distance. The sad part is, women rarely start out feeling this way, but when their constant efforts are taken for granted year after year, their hearts begin to close off. If you've ever felt unappreciated in your relationship, you're not alone. Many women carry this same burden, often silently, until one day they simply can't carry it anymore. Unresolved conflict that turns love into distance. So many women silently carry emotional wounds, not because they're overly sensitive, but because they've never truly been heard. When a man consistently downplays or ignores what his wife is trying to express, the underlying message becomes clear, even if it's unintentional: your emotions don't matter. This lack of emotional validation chips away at trust and connection faster than most people realize. Over time, that emotional neglect plants the seeds of bitterness. It doesn't just cause temporary frustration, it reshapes how a woman views her partner. At the beginning of a relationship, there's often deep admiration, partnership, even joy. But when important issues are constantly swept under the rug, the admiration starts to fade. The man who once felt like her confidant, her safe place, now seems like someone who just doesn't listen, someone who shuts her out, someone who treats her emotions like they're a nuisance. Slowly and painfully, he turns from a teammate into an opponent. And the hardest part? Many men don't even realize this shift is happening. They interpret the lack of arguments as peace, not realizing that silence often means she's emotionally checked out. She's stopped fighting, not because everything is okay, but because she feels it's pointless to try anymore. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, why even bring it up? He won't understand anyway. Know this: you're not alone. So many women suppress their pain for years, convincing themselves to keep the peace while resentment quietly builds beneath the surface. A change in priorities that leaves her. Feeling empty as time passes, a woman's vision of fulfillment evolves. What once brought joy, raising children, supporting a partner's ambitions, creating a loving home, may eventually feel like a closed chapter. And sadly, some husbands don't realize when their wives have grown beyond that role. A woman may reach a stage in life where she longs for new experiences, emotional depth, personal growth, independence, or even adventure. But if her partner remains unchanged, clinging to old habits and routines, it creates a painful disconnect. For decades, many women have put their dreams on hold for the sake of their families. They've been the glue holding everything together, making sacrifices others may never fully see. But once the children are grown and the household no longer demands constant care, that woman looks around and feels something is missing. And if her husband hasn't grown with her, if he still expects her to play the same role she played in her 30s or 40s, she begins to feel stuck in a life that no longer reflects who she is becoming. Take Helen, a 68-year-old retired librarian. For most of her adult life, she was the heartbeat of her home, organizing birthdays, helping with homework, making sure everyone was okay. But now, in her golden years, Helen craves something more. She wants to travel, learn new things, join clubs, maybe even take up painting or hiking. But her husband? He's perfectly content watching TV night after night, dismissing her ideas with a casual, "Why change what works?" What he doesn't see is that it doesn't work for her anymore. That's where resentment takes root. A woman who spent years putting others first starts to realize no one is putting her first, not even the man who once promised to walk beside her through every stage of life. She yearns for a life filled with purpose and connection, but if her partner isn't willing to evolve with her, she starts to see him as a roadblock instead of a companion. And that shift in perspective, it's powerful. It doesn't just create distance, it rewrites the entire emotional dynamic of the marriage. This isn't just about new hobbies or wanting more fun. It's about being seen, understood, and valued as she grows. And when a husband fails to recognize that, it's often too late by the time he notices the silence. Aging should be a time of expansion, not limitation. When a woman feels her life is still unfolding but her husband remains rooted in the past, it's not just boredom she feels, it's a sense of loss, a loss of potential, of connection, of herself. If you've ever looked at your life and thought, I've changed but he hasn't, you're far from alone. This silent disconnect is something so many women face as they age, and too few people talk about it. When affection fades, resentment grows. One of the deepest emotional wounds in a long-term relationship is the quiet disappearance of affection. It starts slowly, less hand-holding, fewer hugs, compliments becoming rare. Eventually, it feels like emotional and physical warmth have completely vanished, and that loss hurts deeply. In the early years, love was expressed with touch, flirtation, laughter, thoughtful words, and gentle gestures. But as time passed, many husbands grew too comfortable, forgetting that affection isn't just for the early stages of love. It's a lifelong need. It's what keeps intimacy alive, no matter how many years have passed. Sharon, a 71-year-old retired secretary, remembers a time when she and her husband used to hold hands during walks. He would place a reassuring hand on her back or wrap his arms around her for no reason other than love. But now, they sit on the same couch, barely speaking. Conversations revolve around errands or bills. The emotional closeness is gone. When she finally expressed her sadness, telling him, I miss how things used to be, his response cut deep. We're too old for that now. That one sentence told her everything she needed to know. He didn't even see the problem. What many men don't understand is that affection isn't about youthful passion. It's about emotional safety. It's about making a woman feel wanted, valued, cherished at every age. When that disappears, it's not just love that fades, it's identity. Women don't stop wanting to feel beautiful or desired just because they've aged. When they're met with indifference, they don't just feel lonely, they feel invisible, and that is a deep and lasting kind of pain. Physical intimacy also changes with time. Bodies shift, energy fluctuates, and health concerns may arise. But that doesn't mean connection has to disappear. What women truly long for is effort. The kind that says, I still choose you, I still see you, I still care. When that effort vanishes, when compliments stop, when warmth fades, when touch is no longer offered, a woman stops feeling like a partner. She starts to feel like a roommate. And here's the hard truth. Women don't just get used to that, they begin to resent it. They resent the loneliness. They resent being dismissed. They resent that they're still trying, still craving closeness, while their husbands have emotionally checked out. Many women try again and again to bridge the gap. They bring up their feelings. They ask for affection. But when those pleas are ignored or laughed off, eventually they stop asking. Not because the need has disappeared, but because they've accepted that it will go unmet. That acceptance? It's not peace, it's heartbreak. If you've ever felt like your love is being taken for granted, if you've ever felt the sting of emotional neglect disguised as comfort, please know, your feelings are real, and you are not alone. Sometimes all it takes is a simple thank you or I appreciate you to make someone feel valued. In the early years of a marriage, these words often come naturally. A husband might regularly express gratitude for the little things, like dinner on the table or a clean house. But as time goes by, those words can start to fade. What once felt like appreciation begins to feel like expectation. And when a woman notices that her daily efforts go unrecognized, that quiet hurt can gradually grow into deep resentment. Take Nancy, for example. A retired school principal in her early 70s, Nancy spent decades tending to her home with care and love. She made sure her husband's favorite dishes were served, the house stayed tidy, appointments were kept, and every little detail of their lives ran smoothly. But slowly she began to realize something unsettling. Her husband had stopped acknowledging any of it. Acts that once drew smiles or compliments were now met with silence. When she went above and beyond, he responded with indifference, as though it were simply her duty. One evening, after spending hours preparing a special meal, Nancy looked at her husband and gently asked, "Do you even see what I do for you anymore?" His only reply was a shrug. In that moment, she felt invisible, not just in that conversation, but in her own marriage. This quiet erosion of appreciation can be soul-crushing. A woman who spends her life giving, emotionally, physically, mentally, without ever receiving acknowledgement or gratitude, eventually starts to feel depleted. She may not complain, she might not even show her hurt right away. But inside, she's growing tired of always being the giver without ever being seen. It's not just about saying thank you, it's about recognizing how much she's carried over the years. Remembering birthdays, keeping family bonds strong, offering emotional support, managing routines, these unseen efforts are often taken for granted. On the surface, she may appear to be holding everything together just fine, but within, she's drained. She feels unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. Resentment doesn't usually explode all at once. It builds slowly through countless moments of being overlooked. When a woman no longer feels cherished, she starts to pull back emotionally. She laughs less, she speaks less, she stops initiating affectionate gestures. Not out of spite, but because her emotional reservoir has run dry. There's simply nothing left to give. Ironically, the cure is simple: show appreciation. It doesn't take grand gestures. A sincere compliment, a thank you, or simply noticing what she does can rekindle emotional closeness. But when those small acknowledgments disappear, the emotional intimacy fades with them. If you've ever found yourself giving endlessly and wondering if your husband even notices, you're not alone. This quiet ache affects so many women who feel like their efforts have become invisible. Your feelings are valid and more common than you may think. Another powerful reason resentment builds in long-term relationships is the painful realization that the couple has grown apart. That spark of connection, once full of shared dreams and laughter, now feels like a distant memory. This kind of disconnection doesn't usually happen in a single moment. It happens slowly, through years of routine, stress, and emotional neglect. At some point, a woman may glance at her husband and think, "Who is this person sitting next to me? How did we become strangers?" In the beginning, marriages are filled with intimacy, meaningful conversation, and a sense of partnership. Couples talk for hours about their future, their fears, and their goals. But as life becomes more complicated, careers, children, and responsibilities take center stage, many couples stop investing in their emotional connection. They assume that love will survive on autopilot. But love isn't self-sustaining. It needs to be nurtured, especially over time. Lack of real conversation. The first sign that something is shifting is usually a lack of real conversation. A woman may realize that she and her husband only talk about to-do lists, bills, or logistics. The deep discussions, the curiosity about each other's thoughts and feelings are gone. She might attempt to open up, only to be met with a distracted "uh-huh" or a blank stare as he flips through TV channels. Eventually, she stops trying. Take Margaret, for instance, a retired social worker in her mid-70s. She fondly remembers when she and her husband would stay up late talking about their dreams and fears. Now those moments are long gone. When she tries to discuss something that matters to her, he changes the subject or doesn't listen at all. Over time, she came to a painful realization: she was living with a man who no longer really knew her. Even worse, he didn't seem to care. While she felt the growing distance, he acted as if nothing had changed. To many women, this emotional indifference is more hurtful than any argument. It creates a loneliness that feels heavy and isolating. Another source of resentment is the sense of being left behind. Over time, many women evolve. They develop new interests, pursue hobbies, or crave fresh experiences. They may want to travel, learn new things, or have deep, meaningful conversations. But if their husband remains stagnant, refusing to grow or engage, She begins to feel trapped in a relationship that no longer supports who she is becoming. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all this? Many women grieve the love they once had. They remember the man who used to laugh with them, who held their hand without thinking, who made them feel seen and cherished. When that man fades away, replaced by someone emotionally absent, the sense of loss is profound. Here's the hard truth. Love is not just a feeling, it's a choice that requires action. When a husband stops making an effort to truly know his wife, to emotionally connect, or to grow alongside her, he begins to feel like a stranger in his own home. And that's when resentment begins to take root. If any of this resonates with you, if you've felt the slow heartbreak of growing distant from the person you once felt closest to, please know you're not alone. Many women walk this path in silence, believing they're the only ones feeling this way. But you are not. Your emotions are real and valid. So take a moment and reflect. Which of these signs feels familiar? Have you experienced a shift in your marriage that left you feeling unseen, unappreciated, or disconnected? I'd love to hear your story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words could help another woman,